Welcome to Chinese Food Fight Club. We are so happy you're here. I am Danica Lowe, and I'm here with my co-host, Andy Wang. And Andy, today is our first ever episode with guests. Would you do the honor? Right? Would you do the honor of introducing our illustrious cohorts?
Yeah, it's so weird for me to be introducing people that I see all the time that I've eaten hundreds of meals with. But here, I'm going to try. And I actually took notes to make sure I have it correct. But we're here with Shirley Chung, who is a 2-time Top Chef finalist and fan favorite, as many of you know. She's known for her progressive Chinese food at Miss Chi Cafe, which you can visit in Culver City, Los Angeles, or enjoy at home by ordering tea-smoked duck, her famous cheeseburger dumplings on Goldbelly, which ships nationwide. She's, really done so much on her path to redefining Chinese food. She worked in fine dining for Thomas Keller and Guy Savoy. She ran China Poblano, the kitchen there in Vegas for Jose Andres. She's had many, many other TV appearances beyond competing on Top Chef. She's been a judge on Top Chef. She's been a judge on Food Network shows. And she's just going wild with all kinds of dumplings and, also with orange chicken and mapo tofu and mochi donuts and just all her interpretations of food that nods to her Beijing heritage. I didn't even read that. So, all right, good. I'm just going to do Caryl's without reading. Caryl is the other founding member of this dining group known as Dumpling Mafia that we will explain in a little bit. She's a food festival powerhouse. She's produced little things like the New York Wine and Food Festival and the Pebble Beach Wine and Food Festival. Before that, she worked at Bon Appetit running special events back when that magazine was just the important magazine that had all of the chefs. So over the years, you can imagine that she's crossed paths with anybody who's anybody in this celebrity chef world. And her own dinner parties, which we'll also talk about in a little bit, are, every bit as legendary and much more exclusive. So we're going to have a fun chat, I think.
Last week, we explained our Chinese Food Fight Club origin story. And so I, as a non-dumpling mafia, non-member, but hopefully an honorary one, I would love to hear the origin story of the original Dumpling Mafia food crawl or meal, or what was it? I've heard bits and pieces, but I would love to hear the story.
We go way back since I was working in Las Vegas. So I spent 13 years in Las Vegas for my culinary career, opening restaurants for all these famous chefs that Andy just mentioned. I used to call myself shadow chef because I used to be able to translate all my boss's vision, create dishes based on what they do. But I never really felt like it was my own. But that's where I actually met Andy and Caryl, is when I working for other people. When Caryl used to do the Bon Appetit Encore festival in Las Vegas, and then somehow, even though after I left each company, Caryl always looked for me to wrangle every single chef team, even though that I'm not with them anymore, like the Thomas Keller team, the Mario Batali team, like the Jose Andres team, when I'm no longer working for them, she still come to me, go, hey, where's this XYZ? Where's Zach Ellen? Where's Mark Hopper? I was just I don't know. And she's just can you find them for me? So I always done that for her. I don't know why, but I definitely felt the connection. And so Caryl, Andy, we go way back to Las Vegas. So there's a point that we all ended up in Southern California. So I moved to Los Angeles after Top Chef first time around, and then moved to SGV, the San Gabriel Valley, to near my husband's parents. My husband is Singaporean that grew up in the SGV of San Gabriel Valley. And then Caryl is in LA, and Andy was in LA. Who started that call? Was that Caryl? I want to give, it's Caryl, right? Or Andy? Caryl? Caryl, it must be Caryl.
Probably Caryl.
Yeah.
It seems most likely Caryl.
Well, we were saying it kind of, the stars aligned in a way that I was kind of working for a restaurant that hadn't opened here in LA yet, so I was doing sort of pre-work, so my calendar was more flexible. Shirley was under construction, so she was waiting for her restaurant to be built. And then Andy, once his kids were in school, he had that period from, 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. free. So we were like, well, we can do lunch if we go at this time. And we all love Chinese food. And all of us being rather new to LA, we're like, let's just go explore the SGV, which is the San Gabriel Valley for people, I guess, not here. And the thing with dim sum is it's a complete zoo on the weekends, but it's always so much easier to go on a weekday at 11:30. So we started just knocking off the list of all the ones we wanted to try. If you go as a group, you can order so many more. And the very first time
the first time we went to a mall, yeah.
We went to Santa Anita Mall. It's not just
but it's mall. Not just
because
mall. 100% it's a foodie mall. It's like
correct.
They have Typho in there. They have Side Chick, which is a Hainan chicken rice. I believe that time that Side Chick was named one of the restaurant of the year by Esquire magazine or something like. So it's like a little food stall inside of mall was getting all this attention, and then there's like
and there's real Sichuan food from China in that mall, which is where we went first. We went to Dongpo.
Like that was our first stop, and I believe Major Dongpo was doing some sort of street food festival too. So they have all kinds of like unusual little bites of obviously like different type of dumplings, and then just not your everyday menu. So it was perfect.
Right, and they were calling it dim sum, and I remember Jet Tila, who is the only member of this group who was there the first time and hasn't really come back because he's just so busy being a fucking TV star or whatever. Jet Tila's like looking at the menu and being like, they're calling this dim sum. This isn't really dim sum. And I'm like, motherfucker, you're Thai. These people are Chinese. Let them call it whatever they want. They're making their own different kinds of dumplings. I'm sorry there's not lofokao and fucking taro cakes and egg tarts for you. We'll go do that another day.
So what is it? Like why you eat small plates and you eat a lot of variety with a lot of friends? It's dim sum.
No, and I'm giving
and we did multiple stops that day, so we were able to try different things. So it was kind of the beginning of our food crawl culture.
And then we probably did it 40 or 50 other times, not just in the FGV, but all over LA, just like looking for different, mainly, like primarily Chinese food. So we went to dim sum at places like Lunasia and Sea Harbor. We were just chasing everything new and old. We went and like got straws and sucked out giant soup dumplings at different restaurants.
We went to like the Qingdao bread company. So we started off with a more traditional northern style dumpling, which is what I do. And so it was like, I remember it was the sole, it was a fish and cilantro. And then Caryl doesn't really eat fish and parsley. And then Caryl doesn't really eat that, but then she like really loved it. And then so from that, we went to somewhere to eat giant soup dumpling that you have to suck it out with a straw. It was awesome. I think that's the only one in the SGV in the Singapore Valley. Everything else was kind of like, but it was just like, it was so cool. We all had one because it was made to order and they give you this boba straw. You're like, okay. And I think it was the second time. It was that time that we went to so many dumpling places, and then we decided as a whole, we should name our group. And that's where Dumpling Mafia came out.
Yeah, it was like we kind of like this Dumpling Mafia. We just descend on these restaurants and we'd like take pictures and judge them and talk about them. So
yeah, to this day, I'm not sure who came up with the name first or who officially decided to adapt it. I mean, Shirley's taking credit for it, so okay, great. You get the credit, Shirley.
But on IG, on Instagram. That's why I take credit.
Okay, yeah, another one of us might have said it out loud, and Charlie's just like, let's own this. And the thing that's really funny about this is, I mean, this was like several years ago, right? So this is before like all these things started on the internet, especially with NFTs, which we'll get into later, where everybody wanted to be part of an ape gang or, a fish mafia or whatever. So, I mean, I feel like we sort of predated this whole thing where we sort of, for lack of a better term, we appropriated a word that had negative connotations, and we just sort of made it our own, and we didn't quite worry about the other thing because we were just having fun with it, right? I mean, I think one thing about it is, like, Caryl, given how long, she worked in food media, and, Shirley, given the restaurants that she's cooked in and who she trained under, and then me, and also you, Danica, just her long-time careers in media, we've seen so many cycles of whatever, self-awareness and wokeness before that was even a word. But, Dumpling Mafia is just a name that somebody said. We thought it was fun, and Shirley ran with it.
I also think it's very fitting because you guys started in Vegas, right? And Vegas, the Mafia, it all works.
Oh, we're like
let's talk about that.
Well, I think
we have that sort of like, we started kind of like the Asian Mafia connection. I'm sure that when they first saw me running around with all these white chefs or cooking for all these white chefs, that I'm sure that a little bit that some of like Caryl probably find it surprise. I'm sure Caryl was very secretly proud of me when I was running CarneVino, weren't you?
Yeah. And, like, we all love Jose Andres, right? But one thing that I should bring up is that, like, I think Shirley and I officially met, and she won't remember this, at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas's grand opening, right? And Jose, most gregarious host, he's running around, like, doing caviar bumps with people. He's got Fran Adria hanging out with him. And Shirley's just in the kitchen, and every single table is a VIP. And it's just like, what in the hell am I supposed to do? It's all these food media. And I mean, if you don't remember the Cosmopolitan opening, Jay-Z and Beyonce were hanging out there. Coldplay was there.
With a walk-on by Kanye West.
Yeah, I mean, you would be in the elevator and these people would show up. Like, I walked by a different Jose Andres restaurant, and I think A-Rod and Cameron Diaz were, like, eating with Gail Simmons, if I remember correctly. That's just what it was.
Yeah.
This is not at all about, like, being name-droppy or whatever. If you go back and you look at page 6, there's, like, 200 A-list celebrities that were there, and, like, Colin Cowie did it. So, Jose being, like, this public face and this figure even back then, this is long before all this World Central Kitchen thing, all this Man of the Year humanitarian stuff, still just the life of the party. And his job is to just go out there and have a good time. Shirley's job is to make sure the 600 covers in this overbooked restaurant that happened to include, like, whatever the food editors at Food and Wine and Travel and the travel editor at Travel and Leisure, like, had good meals, like with whatever, the guys from Animal and Aziz Ansari and just whatever. So the thing that was great about this experience that takes it all back is Shirley cooked for me and a bunch of these other people, and we were all at the same table, and my parents were also there telling me, yeah, this food isn't really Chinese. Like, this is Mexican, and this is in China they would do this. And I listened to this the whole time, and, like, John Shook and Sherry Appleby were there. And I don't really have any kind of relationship with them. I mean, I know them from LA too, obviously. But I will just always be so grateful and have such warm feelings for them because they just basically listened to my dad for 45 minutes explain that, like, well, at a real dim sum restaurant, this dumpling would be served a different way. Of course, that's what I remember most. Jay-Z was there, but I remember my dad most.
No, I remember when I was opening Chino Poblano, I had all my parents and my parents-in-law, like the older Chinese, all came to eat my Chinese food. So I'm like never professionally trained in Chinese food. So my Chinese food background is really like live and breathe what I grew up, and I love to read all the histories and then dine around and travel. So that's my knowledge. And I remember both my parents, my parents actually really love Chino Poblano food because it's very Northern China driven. So we have like the hand cut noodles and a lot of Northern style of dumpling, hand fold dumplings and stuff. So like they were pretty fine with those particular items that they're familiar with. And then coming to like the Mongolian beef salad or 20 vegetable fried rice, just throw them off. And then don't even talk about all those Chinese reference taco. But then overall, I remember they tell me like, okay, so Shirley, your Chinese food, I think that anybody that's over 40 might find it a little bit interesting. But everybody under 40, they will love it. So that was the critique that I got from my parents.
That's hilarious.
So
interesting.
Caryl and Shirley, just to sort of follow up on that and to give it context, right? Can you talk a little bit just about, like, if you wanted that traditional Chinese food, if you wanted the progressive Chinese food, yeah, you could get it on the strip at certain places. If you wanted traditional Chinese food, even at this time, Vegas had a great Chinatown, and that led to some adventures. Yeah, tell me about that.
I love the Vegas Chinatown. Like, I lived there. I mean, like, every single my day off, and also at all the late night dinings in Las Vegas, 24 hours, the best is all in Chinatown. It doesn't matter. There's like the Raku, the Mangta, Japanese Raku Suites, and then so they have their little plaza.
And we're talking Spring Mountain, yeah?
Yes, it's everything on Spring Mountain. Yeah.
Spring Mountain, yeah.
So everything's on Spring Mountain, so we literally just call that street Chinatown because the beginning of Spring Mountain, that's near the strip, is the real Chinatown. But then the Spring Mountain goes so deep into Las Vegas. Then you're going to hit the Mangta, all the little Japanese corner.
Oh, yeah, Raku.
And then you go a little bit deeper, Raku, right? And then you go deeper, which is Spring Mountain and Drones. That's my hangout because that's like the supermarket West 68, so everybody go shop there. And then there's used to be China Mama. When China Mama first opened, was the first generation chef, was amazing. And then there's also the Asian barbecue, the tiny little Asian Cantonese barbecue in that same plaza that was opened by a sous chef from Bellagio. See, that's the best part of Las Vegas dining. There's a lot of hotel chefs come out to do individual restaurants.
Yeah.
And Andy and I, we always talk about that. Vegas have the budget. So all their traditional Cantonese banquet style fancy Chinese, the authentic ones, some of the best restaurants are all hiding in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
like used to be the MGM Mansion. Like they get the best of you name it. So when you know the Chinese department of Las Vegas, of like MGM or Bellagio, one of those like luxurious hotel, their sous chef come out to do something on their own, you know that thing's gonna be good. So like that barbecue corner is like my secret. I mean, I think until now, when I go back to Vegas, I still actually go there. And then when you go down the street, then there's like the Island Malaysian restaurant,
yeah, and it's
the
so
upstairs
cheap,
corner, and then there's so diverse. And then there's like the New Gu Chinese restaurants, and also there's a Shanghai Palace. It's all on Spring Mountain.
So one thing that sort of like made me realize that like food is the ultimate connector, basically just for every strata of Chinese person, is a couple of stories that one that I heard over and over again, and one that I saw in person. And the one that I heard over and over again is that there were certain high rollers, right, who were staying at Wynn or Palazzo, and they would just want to go, and they would want to go eat whatever, their favorite version of Cantonese food, which wasn't in the casino. It was somewhere on Spring Mountain. So, you know, there would be these town cars, and you would see these women get out, and they'd have, like, all this bling on, and these men would be, like, really impatient because they want to eat, but they really want to go back and gamble. But the thing that was really striking is that these clients were so important that there were many times where some like really big deal casino host or even a C-level executive would go with them basically because his or her job was just to make sure that they got back to the casino after dinner, because if you lost them, the potential revenue you lost was just ridiculous. So at the same time this is happening, and some of the ones who want like Sichuan food are going to some place like Chengdu Taste, you would go to Chengdu Taste, and I saw this, and there'd be a huge line outside because 2 buses had parked there, and I would like look at where the buses were from, and they were buses from the San Gabriel Valley in Los Angeles, even though there's already a Chengdu Taste in the San Gabriel Valley, because these people would go with their little like casino coupons and, you know, their buffet comps, but still want the bus to take them there and eat the exact same food that they could eat 2 miles from their house. Like, you know, this is a theme that we're going to go over again and again, where like Chinese people just like to eat Chinese food, and they like to eat the best Chinese food, and it doesn't matter if you have a buffet coupon or you have 3 Patek Philippe's, you end up going to the same place.
You go where the food is good, yeah.
Oh, wait, but take it back though. Oh, but take it back though.
What?
Always buffet though. I have to buffet. They do not miss buffet either. So you know that. Like, yes, they don't want their Chinese food. Like that's like speaking to my parents-in-law. Like when they come visit Vegas, they can go to any fine dining restaurant. Don't have to, you know, like come, no reservations. Like I can just walk up. I don't get a hookup for buffet.
Right, they like buffets because all you can eat, and they don't have to tip as much, and they think it's faster. But all right, Shirley, you have to tell the story, right? Where you could have gotten your parents whatever, comped at Bouchon or Guy Savoy, and then but you and your sister had to wait in line for a buffet, right?
Yes, it was Caesar's Palace. I forgot which year, but minimum 12 years ago, that a Christmas, I think that was the Buccaneer buffet just opened for not too long. So like, it's like crazy line. And then we went on Christmas, the day after Christmas at 2 p.m. thinking that 2 p.m. is not too bad. And then my mom was like, buffet only. 6 hours.
Shirley Chung.
We waited for 6 hours.
Waited 6 hours for a buffet for her mom and dad.
I literally called every single chef. Yes, I called every single chef in the Caesar's Palace. I was like, hey, can I get a hookup? They're like, which reservation do you want? And he said, what? Like, oh, like go walk up right now. I was like, no, I want buffet. They're like, what? I was like, yeah, my parents are here. They really want a buffet. They're like, I'm sorry. Like, that's literally something that we cannot squeeze anybody in, because it's like, they're like all kind of politics we involve when it comes to buffet line. So therefore that there's one of the hardest line to skip is actually
I've definitely had conversations with Asian poker players, you know, who just gamble like crazy, who've won a lot of money, but who've told me stories that like, yeah, I went and played Pai Gow at Bellagio just because my parents wanted buffet comps, and I'm like, I don't want to like, and they wanted to like skip the line passes, so I just went and bet, and I think I lost $2,000 getting these buffet comps. But if I just went and bought them a $2,000 meal instead, even though I can afford it, they'd be like, no, you can't do that.
I think there's a story there, Andy. I think it's like the one unhackable thing in Vegas. You can't hack that line.
No, sometimes during breakfast time when they're not too crazy in Cosmopolitan, Wicked Spoon actually like gave me the rope before, and I was just like, really? You let me skip the line for your brunch? And they're like, yeah, it's a weekend, it's okay. It's a weekday, it's okay. I was like, okay. But literally that was it. And also I work for a Cosmopolitan. That's the only
It means you're a VVIP.
Gave me the rope one time, just one time. And I was there for 13 and 100%. I was there for 13 years. Oh my God.
All right, let's really switch gears, but talk about something else that's really, really unhackable. I mean, I've made the case, Caryl, that you for years have been running the most exclusive dinner parties in Los Angeles. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that happened and who showed up and what these potlucks have become?
I mean, going back, so I lived in New York for 16 years, and I always had these tiny apartments with even tinier kitchens. So even though I was surrounded by people in the hospitality business, it was really difficult to entertain there. When I moved to LA and I got a proper house with a proper kitchen, now it's like, okay, unfettered, I can kind of go for it. And obviously, in my line of work, a lot of my friends are chefs, so I would sort of host a dinner party, but then invite all these chefs, and it would be, we started calling them the epic potluck, but we would just kind of like invite different chefs, and everyone, you know, knew who else was coming, so they'd all kind of bring their A game, and there's definitely competition, but also camaraderie. So there's a lot of, my kitchen's big, thank goodness, and there's been times when there's 5, 6, 7 different chefs, and they're all cooking at the same time. It's a kind of a chaos. Organized chaos, but it's a lot of fun, and we started coming up with themes. So the first epic one we did was Italian red sauce night. You coming from New York to LA, we were talking about our missing those Italian red sauce joints. So everyone kind of made meatballs and Sunday gravy, and then, you know, some other Italian dishes kind of came into it. Shirley, having also worked in an Italian restaurant, you made, what did you make? Puttanesca? No.
Yeah, I made puttanesca, and I also I think I did puttanesca cauliflower.
Yeah. So we had everyone was just bringing all kinds of different things, and the second one we did was Chinese themed. So then it was crazy. We had. Do you remember everyone who was there? So Shirley, Andy, you made mapo tots, which were crazy good.
Yeah, Shirley made the tots. I made the mapo, but yeah.
I think I made traditional Hainan
you
chicken
did.
with garlic
and you
rice,
got scalloped pancakes,
slow rendered chicken fat.
Hand
I think there's
dumplings
Terry from Dumpling
yeah.
Mafia, and he was like making wonton. Yeah, he
correct.
was making wontons to order.
Jordan Oken did his shrimp toast on a sesame bagel. That was delicious.
And there's twice
from Daniel Holtzman from the Meatball Shop.
Daniel Holtzman.
Daniel, yes.
He just walked in and said, "I'm happy to be here. I destroyed my whole kitchen to do this for you guys."
So much, like a wok.
But his was honestly, to me, like the most authentic Chinese thing there, I think.
He went all the way, like sit there and render. All the pork belly was properly rendered. So when he makes the twice cooked pork belly, it's really dry. It's not salty at all. So
Li Wei, the dried aged fish guy, he brought a whole fish and steamed that.
Right, and Li Wei was already like the dry aged fish guru of LA at that point, but this was before he ended up supplying, you know, like 20 really well known restaurants. So we were getting a preview of his greatness. I mean, it's kind of wild that a lot of these dinner parties, like, we were so early to all these things that nobody even anticipated.
Exactly. Well, I mean, so if you want to go OG all the way back when I lived in New York City, at the time I had a boyfriend who was in the food world also, and we were living in a loft on 14th Street in the Meatpacking District, and it was his birthday, so I invited all of his chef friends over, and thankfully his restaurant, I was not going to cook for these guys, so his restaurant catered it. But our guest list was like Danielle Ballou, Bobby Flay, Marcus Samuelson, like Tom Colicchio, all these chefs came. But it was right after Kraft had opened. So Tom was like, well, I'll come, but I'm going to, I just want to go through the second seating, just make sure everyone gets in okay. I'm like, yeah, just whenever you can make it. So Tom shows up probably around like 10 o'clock. And I'm like, there's a ton of food. There's like, there's porchetta, there's, salad, focaccia, like all this stuff. And he's like, okay. And he starts making a plate. But then he starts making a sandwich, and he's like, takes the focaccia, puts some of the mixed greens on it from the salad, slices the porchetta, takes some aioli from another dish, and Danielle walks over into the kitchen. He's like, what are you doing? And Tom's like, making a sandwich. And Danielle's like, make me one. And then Bobby Flay's like, what is that? And so he starts making sandwiches. Like it's 10 o'clock, so everyone's ready for their kind of second dinner. He starts making sandwiches for everybody. So we like to say this was the start of the witchcraft sandwich.
Of course
bar.
It was.
And I have pictures of all this. So
yeah, if you go visit Carol's house, like, and you just like look around her kitchen and her refrigerator, she's got pictures of just like very many like crazy moments like that.
Well, there's a part of me that's very sad that social media wasn't as prevalent and my iPhone, like I didn't have a phone with me all the time. So there's a lot of moments that I don't have photos of that were equally epic in my head. But it's probably a good thing that there's not photos of all of these moments from my 20s and 30s. But there's also like a little part of me that's like, oh, I wish I had photos from that party.
I think it's a good excuse to recreate these moments now that we're like fully grown up and we understand the power of social media and also the pitfalls. But this is, I mean, it sounds like I have only been lucky enough to be at your house once because I never get to go to LA, right? So years and years ago, I went there for like a teeny tiny dinner party and I met your dog, who's like the cutest dog ever. But I think like there's something that's really powerful about that idea of chefs off duty. And I love that they're competing in your kitchen and even when they're not working. It's like real life Top Chef in Caryl's kitchen. It's so cool. I love that.
And then we all secretly check the leftovers. Because we're like competitive, right? Like who has
That's also very Asian.
Like, oh, my goodness, song. I was like, so.
Yeah, and and Caryl has definitely done highbrow parties where like people are like bringing caviar and it's based around that. Or with my encouragement, done lowbrow things where it's largely involved like me melting Velveeta cheese. So again, it just sort of speaks to like the same types of people go to all these parties, but like the people who love the high also love the low. And I think that type of balance is really like what also defines Chinese Food Fight Club and Dumpling Mafia. Because, crazy banquets, we love it. Do I miss the fact that you could go eat 8 dumplings for $1, like off of the Bowery in New York, and then later on I found out that there were like somebody took an aerial photo of it and there were rats there. I mean, yeah, but I really miss that place, Prosperity Dumpling, and I love it, Anyway, so Danica, unfortunately, you live overseas, but the good thing for people that are, fans of Shirley is that they can eat her food anywhere in America. So Shirley, talk a little bit just about how, Goldbelly really just like saved your business and allows you to still be a chef right now, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I started partner up with Goldbelly, actually started 2019. And Andy really played a big part helping me get on Goldbelly. And before that, I met them in some sort of TED Talk, and I always thought it's a great concept. And ever since I opened the sheet, because this is like a progressive dumpling, all kinds of dumpling-driven restaurant. So I always know that I wanted to sell my frozen dumpling to the mass. So I've been trying to get on Goldbelly for months, and then Andy knew about it. So as soon as he found out Jordan, that started working for Goldbelly, and he connected us. So I was able to be on Goldbelly to be the second Chinese vendor, but then the first vendor that carried Chinese dumplings. So I started with only 2 types of dumpling. One is chicken dumpling and one is my cheeseburger pasta or jumbo cheeseburger pasta that I won the Top Chef Challenge of. So that's my progressive take. The other one is more traditional. And then so it was okay. It was kind of fun. Like people order during Chinese New Year. So we're just kind of like, for my husband, it's almost a little bit troublesome because we have to pack every week ourselves, buy dry ice. So logistically, it wasn't really worth the money for him. That's pre-pandemic. And then after shutdown, when we reopened, actually right before we reopened last year, July, Ms. Chi, we closed for 4 months, beginning of a pandemic, because we didn't know what's going on. We will be able to reopen with first round of PPP loan. And when we first reopened, Goldbelly been reaching out to me asking, can I put the frozen dumpling back on Goldbelly? And I was like, okay, not a problem. They said the demand is over the roof right now. So when I first tried out the first week, when I first start shipping, my order is from, originally I was shipping like 30 orders a week to 50 orders a week. Is like, oh my God, this is amazing already. And then the first week open, I remember I already got 90 orders for the week. And then that's already more than double than normal. And I was like, this is so great. And as we go, they're asking me if I would like to add more item onto Goldbelly. And I see it's going so great. So I added scallion pancake, I added more wonton, and I added like gluten-free orange chicken. And then the last thing I added was my whole tea smoked duck that I created during pandemic. And so let me tell you, Goldbelly especially started last year holiday season. My sales, it grew 600%. And it become, because I have 8 items on GoBelly shipping nationwide, so that become a mini restaurant. So you can pretty much order a whole meal, whole meal. Like I have pork chop for 4, I have orange chicken, there's appetizer, there's handmade scallion pancake. So everything that we do in Miss Chi, we actually also offer on GoBelly. So there's no food waste. Everything's always really fresh. And then we really, it's like everything sell on GoBelly is always made the day before, and then we freeze it and we sell. So it's like my system is like super amazing. And then also because I have a consistent income of GoBelly, I was be able to renegotiate with my landlord, which they started to play hardball towards like last year, towards the end of the year for my lease, because I own them 4 months rent, and then their rent is ridiculous. But because I have GoBelly, so I was be able to go back and renegotiate, and then got my rent dropped 30%, and then they were re-signed for 5 years. Then I was like, oh my God. So now I know I'm not going to lose my restaurant because I didn't pay my rent.
I'm so happy that your food is available on GoBelly. First of all, it's such an incredible statistic, 600% over a year. That's incredible. That's congratulations. Yay.
And I also started digital cooking class on GoBelly too. So same thing. It's like, and so it's like, and then I have a great following. So that only, and then because I also build all my boxes in Miss Chi, so it's another source of revenue to bring to the storefront. And I also like really building my name, and then continue to put it out there to make people realize that I'm really good at what I do. I became one of the most popular class on GoBelly. So all around is like, and then they've been reaching out to me to really helping, building the community and helping out. It's all around. And then we all become, I think, Caryl,
I said it to my parents.
We all become like a GoBelly person too. So instead of sending flour, we all just start sending food to our friends, not just my food. Yeah, exactly. Not just my food, but I will order my friends. You know, like
I ordered a Valerie coffee crunch cake for my Mother's Day. Shout out to GoBelly, and they better sponsor your podcast.
Yes, we're open. We're open to sponsorships. But I think what's so amazing here is that this is such a testament to the power of a platform. And Shirley, I just want to talk very briefly. I'm sure you are sick of talking about this, but for anyone who has not been to your restaurants in Las Vegas and in LA, most people will probably recognize you from seasons 11 and season 14 of Top Chef. In season 11, you were a finalist, and in season 14, you were the runner-up. So you did extremely well in both seasons, and that must be so huge. Can you talk a little bit about how that impacted your career in the long run and really elevated you to one of the preeminent voices in Chinese American cooking?
I actually work really well under stress. I'm one of those that always study right before the big test, and then I'll be totally fine. And I'm competitive. So in a way that I really enjoy competing on Top Chef, that you don't have to worry about food costs or nobody shows up. All you do is just focus and create. So I sound super cheesy, but I would like to say that I actually found my culinary voice on the first time I was being on Top Chef. So the first time, like I said before, I work for a lot of amazing chefs. And then so I have a lot of different technique, French, Italian, Spanish, Mexican, and then Chinese, more home cooking technique, sort of in my back pocket. So competing on Top Chef the first time around, it was awesome. It was like for me to showcase my skill set. So I won a lot of challenges, but didn't really have a clear vision of who I was. I was just this Chinese girl or Chinese American girls that really know how to cook all cuisines. So like I was like, I can do cuisine with no borders. But as I'm more and more cooking on like kind of reaction, because I never memorized any recipes or anything like that. I don't compete like that. I don't believe like that. I just like cook with whatever come at that moment. And that made me realize that every single winning dish that I all created on the spot. I wasn't repeating any old recipe that I had. And then 90% of the new recipe that I created on the spot is always whatever technique I use, but the flavor and texture always come back to Chinese. So after the first time I was on Top Chef, and then I realized, I was like, you know what? This is what I cook. I cook modern American cuisine with a Chinese soul. And then, so I was be able to open my first restaurant, modern Chinese restaurant in Orange County, right after the first time I came off Top Chef, left that partnership, came back to compete on Top Chef for the second time. So on the second time, I realized that, hey, I need to use this opportunity. I know I can compete. I can cook anything I want. but I really need to use this opportunity to rebuild my brand. Because from the first time, I realized that my brand is not that clear. So on the second time around, all I did was I cooked Chinese. As you probably know, since Chinese is literally the only cuisine that I was never professionally trained. So I sometimes I joke about the authentic traditional Chinese is like my weakness. But I cook the progressive Chinese that's sort of ingrained in me, my soul. I know how to do all those jiaozi dumplings since I was 5 years old with my mom and scallop pancake. It was all those like very home cooking thing. And I really wanted to just elevate it, but still you feel like I'm giving you a hug. So that's kind of my way. So on second time around, even though I didn't win as many challenges, but I still was be able to last till towards the end. And then I decided and then really made a clear decision in finale for Mexico. I cooked a 6-course Chinese tasting menu meal. I had a lot of problem looking for the proper ingredients, but I didn't care. I just wanted to make a point. Even though my French is actually the strongest cuisine that I cook, because, I train French laundry. But I decided that I actually use as little those kind of like fine dining technique as possible. But I really truly want to showcase my Chinese cuisine, but always really just to want to make a point that Chinese cuisine, traditional Chinese cuisine can still get head on head. It's probably better than any Western cuisine that you can think of. And then I didn't care. I wasn't afraid, even though I couldn't find proper ingredient, but I made a point and I did it. So I didn't win, but I still came off to really make people realize that to sort of give it a spotlight on Chinese American cuisine again, over again. Because I feel like everybody, all the Asian, a lot of cuisine all got like a moment. Like Japanese cuisine has been going strong for 20 years already. And then Filipino cuisine was getting a lot of spotlight the past few years. Thai cuisine, all those like really, like I'm really happy for them. But Chinese cuisine is the oldest, the most popular, I hate the word ethnic cuisine in America. I almost wanted to say the most popular cuisine in America, but literally Chinese cuisine we never get any attention. So, and then everybody's still thinking about the old school of like chop suey. The only thing is the really overly goopy sweet and sour pork. A lot of people still, that's the impression. And that makes me like so upset. So I just wanted to do. So even though for Miss Xi's menu, I have like the traditional chow mein, the chow mein, the fried rice, and all those sort of things that.
We're just seeing regional cuisines just come in now. And Andy and I talk about this all the time. We think it's because of all the international students who are coming, right? And they all come and they want to eat something. So all of these regional cuisine restaurants are opening near universities in big cities all over the United States. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. Once Americans realize that China is a massive country where everything changes so much from city to city, province to province, region to region, the flavors are different, the spices are different, what's available is different. It's going to over the next 30 years, everything will change. The entire landscape of Chinese cuisine all over the world, we're already seeing it in London, just because they have much more liberal immigration policies here, I think. But we're seeing it slowly start to happen in parts of LA and in New York.
Yeah, and I think, Caryl, your history just in food events and openings really sort of speaks to this, right? Because if you think about, what has happened historically over the years in Aspen and South Beach and New York and LA, they would have all these events and then it'd be like, okay, there's this thing that's fine dining, there's this thing that's burgers, and then after a while they'd be like, okay, things like Lucky Rice have happened, maybe we should have a thing that's also a night market, right? So tell me a little bit about how you've seen that evolve, and then also just how we ended up just doing a charity festival that really highlighted Chinese American and AAPI food. And tell me what it was like doing that after you've done all these other things.
Yeah, I joke about it a lot. I say it as a joke, but it's actually true, is when I started working for Chef Jeremiah Tower in 1993. So he was obviously kind of a founding father of California cuisine, came from Chez Panisse and Open Stars, so very traditional California cuisine. But when, I went to the James Beard Awards in New York with him in 1994, and I was the only Asian woman in that room. And I kind of joke about that, but I was the only Asian woman in that room. And this is, fine dining in 1993. And I joke that it helped me become sort of everyone knew me. Like whether I saw a chef Stephen Piles in Dallas or Emerald in New Orleans or Wolfgang in LA, they knew who I was because I was the Asian girl from Bon Appetit. Like it helped me, I think, kind of establish my network because it was easy to remember me, and they would see me once a year, but they go, oh, there's that girl from Bon Appetit, you know, and they would kind of remember me. So yeah, doing those events over the years was kind of great because even though I was based in New York, I was working with chefs all around the country and really getting to see the chef culture sort of catch on. Food Network is now blowing up. By the time I was producing the Food Network Festival, it was a top 10 network in the country, which now with streaming and cable, what it is, it's like there's just no way a show or a network can dominate like that. But at the time, in the early 2000s, to have the top 10 network, we were everywhere. So it was kind of right time, right place. Being able to do those festivals and so first it was like just be the biggest, and New York and South Beach were the biggest, but then it was kind of like, okay, now what do we do? And you started to see like the all pork, the cochon 555, the bourbon festival, the whatever. And so Lucky Rice was kind of a natural evolution of like, what if we did a festival that only focused on Asian cuisine, even Asian as broadly as it was, from South Asian all the way to Japanese, Korean, Filipino, everything. So that was kind of fun. And I got to do the first one in New York City with Danielle Chang, who's still, we're still scheming. We're going to try to do something soon. I hope this year, or I guess it may be 2022 now. But so to see that kind of evolve to there, and then, to bring it all the way into like what happened in May, we started to see, and you've talked about this on your stuff, on your Clubhouse rooms before, but the sort of rise in Asian hate crimes that coincided with the pandemic and a certain president who was shooting his mouth off. All of us obviously were concerned about that and very disturbed by that. So to be able to kind of put together a fundraiser that, one, raised awareness about it and to kind of combat it and make people more conscious of it, but two, raised money to sort of support these Asian-owned restaurants or women of color-owned restaurants in big cities that are giving back to affected communities, was just sort of a natural extension of where we were. It was you doing what you do best as a media person, Shirley cooking, me promoting and kind of, helping where I can. So it's like we all sort of had our role to play, but it was sort of the natural evolution, but also just the necessary sort of role that we all wanted to play in that time of, and it's still going on, but that time that in May when it was Asian American Heritage Month.
Yeah, so between Clubhouse and our live Pop Off LA fundraiser, I think we've raised close to $100,000, that been directed to AAPI restaurants. And I mean, that's not nothing.
That's a lot of meals.
And so we're going to do something else that's going to be pretty experimental, but, we'll also donate some proceeds to this. We'll just see how it goes. I'm going to very casually announce that there's going to be a Dumpling Mafia NFT this fall. If you don't know what an NFT is, go Google one of the 100 stories in Vox or the New York Times about people paying $1 million for a new profile picture or a different avatar, or Beeple or Damien Hirst. If you're aware of NFTs and you're tired of hearing about them, I mean, what I'll say is that we are going to figure out some ways to auction off some Dumpling Mafia-related art and have it benefit AAPI organizations because we're already working with them. There will be things that you can use for your profile pic and for your avatar. It will be food-related, but obviously Dumpling Mafia started as this in-real-life IRL thing, so I think the value that chefs like Shirley can bring is like experiential things. You own this NFT, and there may be a token that gets you into the opening of the forthcoming Dumpling Mafia restaurant, right? Right, you have this...
We should say... all of us have been hit up by friends, like, how do I get an invite to the next Dumpling Mafia lunch? I want to come. I want to be part of it. And it's like, we're a little selective about it, but obviously we've included other chefs and friends that come out with us, but maybe these people would get to attend a Dumpling Mafia lunch
honestly,
in the
like,
SGV.
you can own Dumpling Mafia for about 888 Ethereum. That's a lucky number for you and for us. So, I mean, fine. But on a serious note, one thing about Shirley that people may not realize is that she came from a tech background, right? And Caryl has done food festivals that are about the intersection of food and tech. And I wrote about tech before I wrote about anything else. Mm-hmm. This has just been part of our lives. So the fact that, like, Dumpling Mafia has existed in this in-real-life thing and we want to turn it into this thing on the metaverse, I mean, I think it's going to be exciting and fun. And, like, look, we raised $60,000, Crystal Kozer, Yusai, and I, on Clubhouse, which was not an in real life gathering. So I feel like we can do some fun things with that. And, I don't want to overpromise. These things could evolve quickly. The whole market for PFP avatars could crash and then go up 10x and crash again in the time it takes us to make this. But we're hedging our bets. We're going to have some fun.
Sorry, I was listening to this NFT guy this morning, and he was saying how everyone in crypto has actually been kind of surprised that NFTs have taken off so much in the mainstream over the past few months. But the reason is because NFTs are culture, and people love culture, and that is how people can relate to this blockchain crypto world, is through culture. And what is more of a cultural community builder than food? There is nothing.
Through a long-time relationship, we are going to do our NFT in partnership with CoinCloud, which is this extremely large and influential crypto ATM company that has done little things like create a Spike Lee ad that they ran on national TV to promote crypto, right? They are in grocery stores and liquor stores all over America, and they can basically just drop an ATM anywhere and turn it into an NFT marketplace. So that's sort of the thing, if we're going to do this, let's do this, because it's like the desire for NFTs versus desire and people's interest in food, but also connecting with people during this pandemic. All those things are going to intersect and create something pretty crazy. And Shirley's a really friendly chef. We've had Dumpling Mafia things where people basically started a text thread and said, hey, Dumpling Mafia, come eat with us. And then they wanted to call it a Dumpling Mafia meal. And we're like, whatever. We're not really that crazy about the IP issues, but you can do whatever the hell you want.
We've changed the hashtag to Dumpling Gang or some other thing.
Yeah.
We've gone to those.
But if you actually want to be part of the Dumpling Mafia, soon you'll be able to own some dumpling art, and some of that dumpling art will trigger something where you can hang out with Shirley or get something sent to you that's maybe
exactly.
more
You're
exclusive than
Dumpling
Goldbelly.
Mafia
Maybe it's something crazier. It's a limited edition version of our cheeseburger dumpling that only 8 people get. And, I think that this is just going to lead to other things because the people at CoinCloud are very open. So Chinese Food Fight Club NFTs with other chefs. Why not do some crazy thing that's a fundraiser, but also just a fun gathering of chefs all over the world for Lunar New Year? Why not create something that is not just digital, but also physical, where you can walk into a restaurant, buy an NFT off of one of their ATMs, and then sit down and have a free meal because you already bought your meal because you bought that NFT. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, but we've got real chefs and real restaurants who could execute this.
Listen, I fully expect that next year around this time, we're going to have your NFTs. You can get custom printed mooncakes with your NFTs on top. I fully expect that to happen. I just feel like that's the future. Mark my words. Anyway, this is a really good point to start wrapping up. But I think that we have a lightning round.
Shirley, you first. Tell everybody how to reach you on social media, and also what are 5 restaurants that you really want to shine a light on that you don't own in Los Angeles right now?
Oh, okay. So you can find me on Instagram and also on Twitter. The same handle is Chef Shirley Chung, but it's spelled CHF, Shirley Chung, the rest is all spelled out. You can find me there. And also Clubhouse, you can find me Shirley Chung as well. And then most importantly, my restaurant, Mishi Cafe, is in Culver City. So this literally becoming this meeting place, and also people just sending me things because I'm here for at least minimum 5 years. So you can always find me at Mishi Cafe in Culver City. And then for the 5 restaurants that I would love to shine light on, they're actually most of them are my new friends that I met through the pop-up event during Asian Heritage Month. And then we really become extremely close. And then so the first one I want to say is our friend at Texas-style barbecue place called Moose Barbecue, Michelle and Andrew at Moose Barbecue. They started as a backyard pop-up. And then they went to Smorgasbord to have their Smorgasbord for 3 years. And they just opened their brick-and-mortar store in Los Angeles, near Lincoln High, LA, in July. And then me and Michelle, we become really extremely close. And then so I told her that I'm her support group, and we're on weekly phone calls because this is the first restaurant her and her husband ever own. And then I run Mystery with my husband too. So we definitely have a beautiful friendship developed. And then we met all because of pop-up event. We really became friends because of that. And then also my friends, Leo and Lydia at Ricebox, downtown LA. There's a tiny little restaurant. It's modern Cantonese style.
Oh, yes.
So they do like the crispy pork belly, but he roll it into a porchetta style. So it's, so it's a porchetta, but Chinese pork belly. And then he does the best baked chicken. It's a whole baked chicken. Looks like those beggars chicken for the holiday season. So I think the holiday is coming. Everybody all have to line up to order them early. And then also they have the cutest baby. So I really, really love them. And then they're so lovely. They're just amazing human beings that during pandemic, not only they really were taking care of their community. I believe that they were helping like neighbors, including like Andy's neighbors, to order products like produce and then like the PPE stuff that in the beginning a lot of people don't have access to. So they're just like amazing. And then they work through pandemic, working so hard. And then also my friend Justin and Anna Jack Thai. I know Justin's always, because he came from Disney. So he's kind of like me. Change of career, became a chef in the middle of our life. And he's taking care of his parents' old restaurant of 40 years of this traditional Thai restaurant, but he's really changing the menu to make them like Taco Tuesdays, use Wagyu beef, and have really amazing natural wine to really grow his restaurant to kind of like modern it up a little bit. So like I mean,
we can stop at 3. I mean, I just want to point out.
I love my friends.
I want to point out just the fact that, our friend David Lanzel named Moose Craft Barbecue the best barbecue in California.
So hard right
and
now.
That I've obviously written about all the places that Shirley mentioned, but also they've made best of lists, all 3 of them, in Los Angeles Magazine in the last 2 years. I mean, these are like consensus, some of the best places, even though like a lot of people like may not be familiar because they're still not like these mass market like TV chefs and all that. But like they're just making some of the best food and they're some of the best people. All right, Caryl, how about you?
Well, social media and website domain and everything is easy because my mother spelled my name in a really weird way when I was born. So my handle, my domain, my everything is at Caryl Chinn or CarylChinn.com. So slide to the DMs. In terms of restaurants, it's hard because, as you guys know, we are always going out to the hottest, newest places to try what's new. So there's not a lot of places I go to multiple times, but the few that I do, I would say, except for Miss Chi, of course, since we've already said that one. Spartina, Stephen Call, that's kind of my local for Italian when I'm in the mood for some Calital. It's the right kind of energy. I've done delivery from there during quarantine, so he's just cooking. That's kind of a good comfort food for me. Mariscos Jalisco, they have a truck 1 block from my house. Shirley's come and met me, and we walk over. I mean, honestly, like to drive to Boyle Heights, it would be worth it, but now it's a block from my house 5 days a week. So definitely got to hit up the Mariscos truck. And then lastly, I'll just give a shout out to some friends that just opened a new Brazilian restaurant here in LA called Caboclo. I know Andy went the other night.
Very good.
Too. But Chef Rodrigo Oliveira from Sao Paulo, he's like world's 50 best in Latin America already in Sao Paulo. So for us to have this restaurant here in LA is pretty special. We don't have a lot of Brazilian food except for churrasco maybe. So to have someone dining at that level and then just using the best of California ingredients is pretty special for us.
It really feels brand new in a way, which is, a crazy thing to say when you go to restaurants all the time. I mean, I think, Caryl, you and I had the same. We went on different days, but we had the same reaction. It's like, wow, nobody else is cooking like this in LA right now, and it's true.
I went with Chef Royce Burke, and we were saying, like, there's a lot of octopus on the menus places. There's a lot of little gem Caesar. We're seeing these kind of dishes over and over in all kinds of different restaurants. It's so refreshing to see someone do, moqueca, vegan moqueca with just, we've never had these flavors before. We've never had that level of Brazilian food. So shout out to them.
Well, thank you guys so much for making time to be on our first guest podcast for Chinese Food Fight Club. We're so excited that you guys joined us. I think that we should stream a Dumpling Mafia meal, like live stream one day, so people can participate, but we can talk about that later.
And in the meantime, you can find Danica on all social platforms at just at Danica Low, and you can find me on all social platforms at Andy Wang, that's WANG. NYLA.
And all of these will be in the show notes below, so please check these out.